Hello everyone! Welcome back to this game! Okay, so some of you might already be aware of this, but I have a weakness for books. Like, we have a library here, we have a bunch of books to read, and I'm gonna read every one of them, because I like reading books. You probably were already able to figure that out. I read the books in the library in Framed Wings. I got excited anytime I came across a new book in Gaiken. Along with that, two of my favorite dungeons are library dungeons. I love the library in Final Fantasy V. I love the library in The Spiteful Dead. I mentioned that I never got anywhere in Elder Scrolls Morrowind. Part of that is because I stopped to read every book. Now, I'm not necessarily a bookaholic in real life, but I have Amazon Kindle on my phone. I'm one of those girls who likes to read every night in bed. I actually have to try to limit how much I read, otherwise I'll probably read for 1 or 2 hours. I need to go to sleep at some point. I mean, it also depends on the book. It has to be the right subject matter. I'm definitely a fan of books involving transformations. People being turned into things, and their experiences with that. But yeah, long story short, I like reading books. Also, while I'm thinking about it, this character up here, this character is actually the character present in the game creator's profile pic at Twitter? Do you have that person's name by chance? Hello? Who are you? I am... Is it going to be... KetzelFeathers? Oh yes, you shouldn't see me. Dang, screwed up again. Okay, bye. You did not see me. Yeah, that's definitely KetzelFeathers. Who was that? No idea. He looked like a ball of blue fire. I've never read about them. Well, we might be. Gods make all kinds of things, didn't they? Okay, book reading time. A brief note about gods. Open the book? Yes. Naturally, we're going to have custom art for this. Ooh, boy. Get ready for walls attacks. My voice is going to be completely torched by the end of this stream, I can tell. But I don't have to do this. I want to. So let's see here. We do not know the exact number of gods. Almost all countries, peoples, and even small tribes have their own unique gods. Worshipping a Zotodar is common only in Bordonia and Turia. On the Western continent, this good god is almost unknown. It is common when in different parts of the world one god is called differently. You know, that's definitely an interesting thing. Zeus was in more than one country, but it was, like, called different names, I think. At the very least, there was also the situation with Hercules, depending on where you were, was also called Heracles. I'm pretty sure that was the same person. Anyway, the most famous example is the sun god Eos. On the western continent, it is called Helios. In the northern islands, Helios. And El is called the lord of the sun, Eulalios. Only one thing is known for sure. The gods inhabit all 6 dimensions. Earth, water, air, fire, darkness, and light. Those are dimensions? The light gods are most friendly to mortals. They gave healing magic to people. The names of the dark gods as opposed to the light ones are associated with all the woes, evil, and suffering that befall on humanity, except those that humanity might have wreaked upon itself by its own deeds. We cannot say that the concepts of dark gods that people have are far from reality. The gods of light are usually good, and the creatures of darkness are usually evil. Still, good and evil are not directly related to the elements of light and darkness, for they are individual concepts. Elements exist as they are. The gods of darkness do not always harm people. The gods of light aren't forgiving all the time. It all depends on the nature and the mindset of each god. However, when looking at details, one should not fall into self-deception. Good and evil are indeed relative, but real gods won their reputation as a result of real deeds. Therefore, my humble self strongly does not recommend playing with the darkness, especially with the god of all-devouring hatred, Abaddon. Oh, we've heard that name. In the Eastern continent, they traditionally worship the Trinity of Light: wise Eos, generous Zododar, and gracious Amalia. I hope this is not going to be on the test. I do not feel like writing all of this down. The Lord of the Sun, Eos, or Elios, is one of the oldest and strongest gods in our world. Eos, or Elios, the Lord of the Sun, is the one of the most ancient and the strongest gods of our world. His name, Eos, is connected directly to the Purple Empire, him being the patron thereof. It is interesting that there is a Purple Empire. Not a bad choice of color. Curiously, the downfall of the said empire has not hurt the people's devotion to the Sovereign of the Sun. His church has bloomed in some shard of the perished empire, and the later restoration thereof is often referred to as the Miracle of Eos. Context between the Cornelians and the ancient Rodons led to spreading of Eos worship far to the eastern lands. Symbolic as it may be, but the first church ever built in Julgrad was dedicated to Eos. The Temple of Zvetodar, the patron god of the Rodonians, was built only afterwards. Considering the history of the kind-hearted Amalia worship and her popularity on the eastern continent, the scholars still cannot divulge the starting point thereof. And it's certainly an interesting thought. When do certain religions wind up starting? Who started them and how? In addition to the Trinity of Light, the Church approves the worship of all the gods of light with one single exception. The god of gold and wealth, Mammon, inhabits the plane of light, is considered an evil entity, and is not presented in the Church's pantheon. The priests of Mammon are persecuted by the Inquisitors and Paladins, as well as the dark cult adepts. The very fact of the Lord of the Greedy existence is against the light tenets. Oh, Google. Tenet, a principle, belief, or doctrine generally held to be true, especially one held in common by members of an organization, movement, or profession. Sure, we'll go with that. Where was I? Right. The very fact of the Lord of the Greedy existence is against the light tenets, whatever the word is. Even if Mammon is a product of this good plane, the first ecumenical council... You need to stop with the words I don't know. There is a direct instruction. You cannot worship both light and Mammon at the same time. Period. Add for the other elements, the cult of the goddess of water Mira is very popular in Rodonia. Peasants often ask her for rain during periods of drought. In the distant past, the cult of the wild god of the earth, the fierce Zurga, the lord of battles, the patron of orcs and ogres, was widespread. I imagine we'll be seeing that name a lot in the Anti-Heroines DLC. Zurga is a cruel god who despises the weak. Worshipping him means worshipping brutal, unbridled power, which does not correspond to the ideals of mercy and forgiveness of the Trinity of Light. Apparently, the reason for his popularity among the Rodonians lies in his patronage of hunting and hunters. Furs have always been of great importance to Rodonia. Fortunately, over time, the cultural influence of Cornelians softened the cruel hearts of their neighbors. Zurga's cult was forbidden and forgotten. Good. Modern Rodonians refer to this period of their history as a dark but long-forgotten past. I don't want to forget it, It's kind of important to remember history, even the bad parts. Otherwise, it starts repeating, such as it has been lately. However, many Jolgrad haters insist that Jolgo's cult is still alive. Probably. Many people attribute the very fact of the birth of the Rodon Empire, as well as the victory of the Rodonians over the Black Knights of the West, to this evil and aggressive god. However, the last circumstance is explained by many as the intervention of the Red Sorcerers, who supported the tyrant's Leonidas' coming to power. I just realized that different music was playing during that book. Let's hear it again. Can we not read this one? Apparently not all books of our interest. A brief essay on the nature magic. Volume 3, Supreme Magic. Let's find Volume 1. A brief treatise on magic. Volume 1, Lesser Magic. We were already explaining this all once before, but maybe we'll get some new information. At the dawn of civilization, mortals did not possess magic and did not understand it. There were no criteria to distinguish manifestations of magic from the forces of nature. The elves were probably the first to discover the universal spiritual power common for all sentient, but not necessarily living, beings, called mana. Denizens of Edemsil are believed to devise the first rituals in which material objects were affected by magic. Other races neither admit nor dispute the precedence of elves. The reason may be in that the elves consider themselves to be pioneers in all accomplishments of civilization, except necromancy, probably, and all others are simply tired of debating. The spells of the first mages used only the inner mana residing in the body of a mortal. The spell temporarily enhanced vision, increased concentration and physical strength, and much more. With the development of magic and the deeper understanding of our world, the mentioned spells were grouped into separate school, which was later called Lesser Magic. Each living creature, and in some cases even non-living creatures, has its own supply of mana, which means anyone can learn lesser magic spells. Well, why don't we learn those? For a long time, the church was suspicious of lesser magic and even tried to stop its distribution among citizens, craftsmen, and other simple people. The practical use of the spells eventually proved itself to be more important. Certainly took a long time for that to happen in real life, not necessarily with magic, but with technology. Is it amazing that humanity has been around for thousands of years, and yet only in the past few hundred years has technology really taken off? Lesser magic spells help people in their daily work. The jeweler can make his fingers more dexterous, and the woodcutter can put extra power when cutting down a tree. In the end, those in power, church hierarchies included, realize that people who use lesser magic spells simply work better and, therefore, pay more taxes. The wise rulers changed the tactics from restrictions and prohibitions to spreading the lesser magic spells among simple people. Some time ago, Edemsil, Piedmont, and the rich kingdoms of the western continent started teaching the basics of lesser magic in city schools. There are some suggestions to implement this system in Jewel Republic, but the matter is still being discussed. Maddie's pointing out that we kinda do use some lesser magic, like the Thief's Badge thing is using lesser magic to help Diana see stuff with thief vision. A good point. I was thinking more so with Felicia. She is more interested in trying to learn supreme magic with that living ink. A brief treatise on magic, Volume 2, Divine Magic. Open the book? Yes. Mana is a universal spiritual power that every, both mortal and non-mortal, living being has. Having learned the basics of using mana, people, like other races, implying that people is a separate race from other races, discovered the so-called lesser magic, learning how to effectively use the magic powers hidden in their bodies and souls. Read Volume 1 on the details of the discovery of the lesser magic. For a long time, mortals relied only on lesser magic, using only their personal pool of mana for magic. But over time, people began to notice a mysterious phenomena which could not be explained. A powerful rain poured down upon the earth when there was no cloud in the sky. The heat was suddenly replaced by a freezing cold. The personal supply of mana of a human, as well as the dwarf, elf, or any other race, was clearly not enough to perform such magic. Information about mysterious phenomena accumulated year after year. Some found a rational explanation, but in the end it became obvious to everyone that most of these mysterious phenomena are magical in nature. This led people to the assumption that there are other creatures with greater supply of mana than those available to ordinary mortals, which are in contact with the physical world. Frightened by these mysterious and unknown forces, people began to worship them, and shortly after, their prayers were answered. The circumstances of the first contact with the gods gave rise to the oldest philosophical and theological debate that has not finished to this day. According to a number of famous sophists, mostly from the Mages Guild, the calling of mortals, expressed in a prayer's form, penetrated the elemental planes, 6 of which are known to us: planes of fire, water, earth, air, darkness, and light. I'm not entirely sure that I would want to visit the plane of fire. The prayers materialized in these planes. The energies, mixed with prayers, gave birth to new types of intelligent creatures that we now know as gods. The church peremptorily... and here I thought SK knew a lot of words I didn't know. Hopefully Google knows this word. Meaning is, especially if a person's manner or actions, insisting on immediate attention or obedience, especially in a brusquely imperious way. Thank you, Google, for using another word that I don't know. Anyway, the church, that word, denies this theory, refusing to admit that mortals gave birth to gods for their own edification. According to the bishops, gods existed long before the first prayers appeared. It was the gods who created the elements, and later, combining the efforts of all the elements, created our universe. To realize their greater plans, gods created intelligent races. To the sarcastic question of mages, why then didn't the gods show up before and waited at least 100,000 years until mortals started praying to them? The priests say that, unlike the elementals, people were given free will. The gods wanted mortals to come to them of their own free will, and the service of their divine designs was voluntary. Maddie says brusque, however that word is pronounced, means like quick and rough, like someone shoves past someone brusquely. Gotcha. Anyway, disputes continue to this day. The parties agreed only that the prayers, called by sorcerers as spells of divine magic, really help. Contact with the gods was a huge step in the development of civilization. Possessing great mana, the gods, listening to the prayers of the priests, committed and still commit acts inaccessible to the spells of the lesser magic. The gods of the earth moved the mountains. The gods of fire extinguished and awakened volcanoes. The gods of water changed sea flows, accelerating the movement of ships. The gods of light deserve great respect for the healing of wounds, diseases, and the miracle of resurrection. Unfortunately, the gods of darkness do not sleep. Their worship is forbidden and strictly persecuted. But mortals are weak and susceptible to temptations, and the lords of darkness, like no other, know how to lead the soul into temptation. But dark cults were only the first serious problem of the church. Mages have discovered a different way to get to mana, hidden in the dimensions of the elements, which does not require the participation of gods and prayers. So in the world appeared the supreme magic, which will be described in the 3rd volume. Okay, now we'll get to Volume 3, Supreme Magic. Lesser magic spells use the mage's personal mana and increase strength, dexterity, and other physical stats. But mana pool of a human or any other race's representative, even the most outstanding one, is too small to control the forces of nature. Having deified the spirits of the elements, or, in a different interpretation, establishing contact with gods, there are different points of view on the question presented, mortals mastered the secrets of divine magic. Prayer is a call to the god. The mana of the caster, usually a priest, is spent on a request addressed to a god who physically exists in one of the dimensions: water, fire, air, earth, darkness, or light. Divine magic was the turning point for the civilization development, but mortals would not be mortals if they were satisfied with what they had achieved. Inquisitive minds continued to study properties of the elements. Over time, scientists took interest in gods' servants and assistants, elementals. Years later, researchers discovered and deciphered the language of magic, or the so-called prime speak, which gods use to communicate with the elementals and with each other. They discovered that most elementals have rudimentary intelligence. They do not have any self-consciousness and capacity to analyze. Elementals, much like golems, take the words of the prime speak as commands, which are non-negotiable and mandatory. New knowledge allowed mortals to exclude gods in communicating with the elementals. The following is attributed to Magister Faustus, the founder of the Mages Guild. Magic must be devoid of redundant intermediaries called gods. Kind of surprising. I would have figured the gods would be kind of pivotal to using magic. The experiments were successful. With some rare exceptions, it made little difference for the elementals whose orders to follow, gods or mortals. Mages were confident that humanity was about to stop depending on the will and whims of gods. But it soon became clear that the language of magic was fickle. Words and even sounds of the prime speak change almost every hour and differ greatly depending on the element. I definitely remember that. That is kind of why living ink exists, because it uses autocorrect. Mages created the first spells of supreme magic, but they either immediately stopped working, or changed the effect they produced dramatically and unpredictably, often harming the mage. Spells had to be constantly rewritten, considering the time of day, the location, the position of the stars, and many other factors which usually affect elementals' behavior. You know, it sounds a lot like geomancing in Final Fantasy. That is a spell type that I never really bothered with. For many years, the supreme magic did not find an application, remaining of interest only to curious enthusiasts. Rewriting spells took a lot of time, and mages had to constantly ward off the church's rebukes, which negatively took the mages' attempt to dare the gods. The Mages Guild became clandestine? Gosh dang it. No, I'm moving on. Kings and minister... Oh wait, I can probably guess what it means. It's like clans. The key word there is clan. Kings and ministers ignored mages' pleas because the priest's prayers worked without fail and mages' spells were unpredictable. In need of magic, secular authorities took the side of the church over and over again. However, everything changed when Master Faust used the lesser magic spells as a base to create special living ink. This mysterious substance, unlike ordinary ink, can correct magic formulas on its own. When the words of a spell are written in living ink, they change at a specific point in space and time, adjusting to the perception of the elementals. The appearance of living ink spared mages from constantly needing to change their formulas. Living ink did this for them now. What is more, there is no room for an error when using this ink. Master Faust also came up with the idea of writing spells down in special spellbooks that became inseparable companions of all practicing mages. The spellbook protects the mage's knowledge from the prying eyes. Typically, all spellbooks are enchanted in a way that a stranger cannot use their knowledge. Neat. The expansion of magic books led to the rise of supreme magic. The Mages Guild's influence now matched that of the Church. However, with great power comes great responsibility. Haven't heard that one before. But it's true. Those who opposed supreme magic kept on reminding about the risks of the uncontrolled proliferation. A dropout wizard, only dabbling in skills, the one who is troubled even with live ink creating formulas, is dangerous to other people. I expect some shenanigans once Felicia gets a hold of this living ink. The Mages Guild quickly realized that if the mages do not control the supreme magic themselves, there would be those who'd want to do it for them. The Masters of Magic developed a set of special rules which made the study and distribution of spells forbidden. The set of rules formed the backbone of the famous Code of Magicians. The code is obligatory for all mortals who practice the supreme magic. Alas, many freedom-loving mages did not like the restrictions. A group of troublemakers and schismatics emerged from the ranks of the Mages Guild, named Red Sorcerers by the color of their robes. I'm surprised we weren't going with black mages. The Red Sorcerers are fighting an uncompromising battle with all restrictions imposed by the code. The schismatics insist that supreme magic spells should be freely spread and studied by all, regardless of gender and origin. In addition, Red Sorcerers demand that class privileges are to be eliminated without any exception and set their minds on constructing a completely new type of society. This organization is considered illegal in all civilized countries of the world. In fight against the Red Sorcerers, the Mages Guild even cooperates with its eternal rivals, the Wire Guild, the Church, and the Order of the Paladins. Despite unconnected incidents, for example, Red Sorcerers are suspected of supporting the regime of the tyrant Leonidas, who seized power in Jolgrad for 30 years, Archmages and the Mages Guild succeed in controlling the distribution of spells. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to learn the secrets of magic without joining the Mages Guild and completing a special course. Experienced mages teach and watch attentively the young ones. However, this does not prevent the Mages Guild from selling magic items, including potions and scrolls. Unlike magic books, scrolls do not contain spells, but one-time contracts with powerful elementals. The guild trading activities are on such a large scale that in big cities there exist branches of Mages Guild, the Alchemy Guild, and the Enchanters Guild. And that's the end of that book. So did you get all that? Good.